Now, several political parties are heading to the Constitutional Court in a move to have their names on the ballot. The parties have been excluded by the IEC on the ballot list, that is, after their registrations were either invalid or incomplete. Now, the parties are blaming the IEC's registration portal errors for blocking their registration requirements. Let's unpack the story now. Tselane is with the Institute for Election Management Services in Africa, and he joins us now via our Zoom link. Always great to get some clarity from you, Terry, on these election-related matters. I mean, what would this mean if we play devil's advocate and say that the Constitutional Court agrees with these three political parties? What does that mean for the IEC's preparation, which I imagine is at an advanced stage?
Good afternoon to you and to your viewers, and thank you very much for having me. Of course, it would have serious implications for the Commission, largely in terms of the resources that it is required to manage these elections. You may recall that before the President announced the date of the elections, I had actually suggested that we should actually have the outer date within which, within the period within which we can have the elections, which was the 31st of July. That would have given the Commission, as well as all the political parties, sufficient time to be able to prepare for the elections. But unfortunately, the President chose the 29th, and we've got to work within the date that the President has proclaimed, which is the 29th, which basically puts a lot of pressure on quite a number of processes, including the achievement of those milestones as contained within the election timetable. Yeah. So it would have those implications because the commission, amongst others, has got to prepare the ballot paper. And I would assume that given the number of days that are left, that they should be ready now with the production of the ballot paper so that we've got sufficient number of ballot papers going to the right places at the right time. And now if those ballot papers have got to change because new entrants have actually been included, it will definitely have implications in terms of their capacity to deliver within the stipulated period.
If we buy the story of these three electoral candidates, the Labour Party, the African Congress for Transformation, and the African Alliance of Social Democrats, these are the three parties, the three candidates that are taking the IEC to the Constitutional Court. And they're essentially saying that they couldn't fulfill the registration requirements because there were system errors on the IEC's registration portal. And I mean, if they can prove that, that indeed was the case, there's really just one decision for the court to make.
Absolutely. If the Constitutional Court eventually decides in favor of these political parties, it would mean that the Commission would have to include those political parties and their candidates in the process. Now, I have suggested that it would actually put a lot of pressure on the Commission in terms of managing these elections by the 29th of May. However, if you look at the Electoral Act, Section 21 in particular, it does give the powers to the Commission to approach a person who has called for the elections to postpone those elections. But those elections must still be within the 90 days within which the elections have got to take place in terms of the Constitution. The decision by the Constitutional Court is such that they cannot actually be able to do everything by the 29th. Then they can still invoke Section 21 of the Electoral Act by approaching the President as well as the Premiers to make sure that the date of the election is postponed. And as I have already suggested, I think the 31st of July would still be an appropriate date. It is still within a constitutionally stipulated period of 90 days. But it's at the end of the day up to the Commission as well as the President if the Constitutional Court takes such a decision.
I see. So the option is still there for that date that is within the stipulated 90-day period, which is the 31st of July. I mean, we've got 22 days to go until the 29th of May, Terry Tselane. And if indeed this is a case that is successful and these parties do manage to make their case to the Apex Court, we might not have a choice, right?
No, definitely. I think the Commission would not really have much choice. And if I were them, I would be working now on the basis of Plan B, just in case the Constitutional Court does take a decision that favors these political parties, so that they do not have difficulties in terms of the implementation of the decision of the Constitutional Court. You know, so like you've already indicated, the number of days that are there would not really be sufficient for them to be able to do all the things that have got to be done. And therefore, the only option that they would have is to basically invoke Section 21 of the Electoral Act, in terms of which they're going to go to the president and ask for the president to extend the period within which the elections would take place. But that period, as indicated, must still be within the 90 days of the 90 days within which the elections are going to take place.
Right. Terry, how much do you think these three electoral candidates will have to show that voters will be disenfranchised if indeed they are left off the ballot paper? Will that form quite a big part of the case they will have to make to the court?
Of course it would, because if you look at the Electoral Court was divided in terms of this particular issue. The majority dismissed those cases, but there were minority opinions from the Electoral Court. So it does show that it is possible that the Constitutional Court could still take decision that is different from the Electoral Court based just on looking at how the Electoral Court decided on this particular issue and the fact that there was a minority opinion which basically differed with the majority opinion. Yeah,
absolutely. And then just to get your take on this as well, Terry Tselane, we've just gotten a statement from the IEC regarding the removal of former President Jacob Zuma from the list of members for Parliament for the MK party. The Electoral Commission effectively saying that it has received communication from Jabulani Khumalo on behalf of the MK party. He's demanding in that letter that the Electoral Commission must remove Zuma as the face, the quote, face of MKP and as the president of MKP. Of course, the Commission says its stance is that it does not involve itself in the internal affairs of any political party. And Mr. Zuma is indeed the registered leader of the party, and it will remain as such. That's obviously understandable on the part of the IEC.
Absolutely. I think the decision of the Commission there is correct. And it has always been the approach of the Commission over the years. You may recall that the Commission was faced with similar circumstances when Pope had different issues, different leaders. And on the basis of how the Commission decided on that, I think the Commission now would have taken leave from some of those decisions. And this also happened when the Pan-Africanist Congress was having its own difficulties in terms of leadership. So there is really a wealth of experience within the Commission in terms of how the Commission has dealt with this kind of issues. And the Commission does not or would be weary to get involved in internal politics of political parties. They would work on the basis of what they have, and therefore the recognition is based on the names that are currently there until such time that there has been proper processes that would actually make them change those particular processes. So on this particular issue, I think they've taken a correct decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, can you imagine if the IEC were to involve itself on the inner workings of any political party that happens to be going through a squabble?
Absolutely. It would really be difficult for the Commission to manage its processes, because then any person would be able to go to the Commission and say, the current people are not really the representatives. We have changed them last night, and therefore I'm now the leader, and then you must recognize me. And the Commission would find itself now embroiled in issues that don't really require them. And I think it is important that they continue to operate that way and make basically political parties to resolve their own issues. And for the Commission to continue preparing for the elections with the current leaders that they currently have, as well as the current processes that are in place in terms of the election timetable.
Yeah, absolutely. Terry Tselane, as always, a pleasure talking to you. Thanks very much for giving us some clarity around some key election issues as we count down 22 days to the 29th of May. Terry Tselane is with the Institute of Election Management Services in Africa.